We are joined by the ever-talented Jonathan Bogner.
If you want to support me or give me ideas, it's BognerEntertainmentInc.com for business ideas, reality shows, film. But if it's a personal story, I'm really interested in health stories. That would be personalstories.net. You can find my story, and I'm looking for other stories. You're watching and listening to Two Geeks Talking.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. Two Geeks Talking is an entertainment industry interview show where we interview the creative people from the comic, film, TV, movie, and video game industries. And of course, I'm your host, Kurt Sasso. We are joined today by a very talented individual. He is a reality TV show producer. He is a film producer as well. He survived a major health scare, and he has a longer resume than I've ever had anyone on this particular show. Who is this person? Well, we are joined by the ever-talented Jonathan Bogner. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Kirk. Thank you for that introduction. Wow. I didn't know I've had the longest resume that you've had in your career. Wow. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
It just means you're very passionate about what you do. So I'm sure we'll dive into everything that we have in store with your career in this limited amount of time that we have. But for those that don't know anything about yourself as a creative person, tell us who you are and what you're bringing to Two Geeks Talking.
I'm bringing to your audience the ability to persevere. You have to be persistent in everything from your health crisis, which I've had many, and to your productions, the movies you produce, the reality shows. I've also done a couple of documentaries. So I think my experience throughout my life has been, when you get knocked down, get up, just get up, because that's what defines you. So throughout my life, and you mentioned my health crisis, I've had a lot. I was at Sundance selling a movie. We sold the movie, came back, had just immediately had two strokes, heart failure, and aphasia. Aphasia, for some people who don't know, is the inability to talk. So having a producer, I mean, my life is talking, pitching, getting people to agree with me. That's a big challenge. And also after I had the strokes and the aphasia, which I couldn't speak, we decided I should have, we, meaning my wife, we wanted to have what's called an implantable defibrillator in my chest because there were certain elements with my heart that I needed to be shocked back to life. Ultimately, I got shocked back to life 8 times. And then I needed a heart transplant 16 years later. I just wanted to kind of run out at that time. I was 45 years old, and I wanted to run out the clock on the existing heart. And then I got a new heart. Interestingly enough, it was a woman's heart. There are challenging situations when you get the opposite sex. One of those challenges is a woman's heart has spasms in the heart. It was a heart spasm. I was in the hospital a couple times last year. It presents like a heart attack. We solved that. And then my donor also had a virus, and I was negative. She was positive. And then sure enough, I got the virus. But I'm here to say I'm alive. I'm well. I'm persevering. And I think my productions, all the things that I'm doing now are things that I really want to do. If you talk about my career as kind of in blocks, I did a couple of movies that the Grimm brothers fairy tales. I did two of them. I was going to do more. I feel like, when you create, when you come up with ideas, you can't create in like a vacuum. You want to be in a way that you can sell your movies, right? Because if no one goes to see your movie, it doesn't really engender that you're going to get another movie. So the first couple movies I did were kind of works for hire. So it was a network, and the network needed a production company to produce a couple movies, and we sure enough, we got lucky, and we worked a couple of movies for a network, and then we segued into production, our own productions, and we came up with big themes. And I've said that Grimm Brothers fairy tales. We never, when we did Hansel and Gretel, and when we did that starred Taylor Momsen, a lot of other actors in that movie, it was a theme based on the Grimm Brothers fairy tales, but we altered that theme. So it doesn't mean you have to literally follow it. It's just a name recognition. I always like things that, like, oh, I remember Hansel and Gretel. Oh, I remember Red Riding Hood. Whatever your vision reading Red Riding Hood was, I altered it, but at least I got you to the table.
Yeah.
Right. So we did the big theme movies, then we did sports movies, and we partnered with Clear Channel. So they were our partner, and we made motocross and we made supercross. And so big themes. So we had an audience. So the family movies, we had an audience. The sports movies, we had an audience. And then, as you know about my career in comic books, so I did Trailer Park of Terror based on a comic book. I did movies that I always wanted to leverage some other element that I could bring to the studio. So I did a movie called Soccer Mom. And Soccer Mom, I got Ladies Home Journal and all those merit magazines to be a partner. And so we went to the studio and we could say, we've got this magazine and they're going to put up $5 million of advertising or $10 million of advertising. Same thing I did with the Reader's Digest. So Reader's Digest was going to have a series of movies. Ultimately, it was one, so we didn't do a lot. Reader's Digest, based on a story in their magazine, we adapted it and we produced it. So it was Reader's Digest Presents. So I always liked those types of movies that I had like an inbuilt partner who was an advertising partner.
So much to talk about.
Yeah. So,
I mean, you've had a wonderful career here. One question I always ask, and this is something that I think is more apropos, especially with the person I'm speaking to here today, is what is the most misunderstood aspect about being a producer for people who don't follow the film or TV industry?
I think people don't know what a producer does. And clearly it has morphed today. When you look at credits, you've got executive producers, you've got the producer, you've got a line producer, you've got associate producers, you've got co-producers. I mean, it's like they give it out like candy. I think the most misunderstood is, what does the producer do? What does the executive producer do? What does the line producer do? And there's also the creative producer. In my case, I did them all. And that's kind of like an old fashioned way to do it. Just going back to your question, I think the producer role is misunderstood because people understand, I'm the actor. Got it. I'm the director. Got it. I'm the DP, the director of photography. Got it. What is the producer? And sometimes I think he's the problem solver from the business and creative and distribution point of view. So usually the producer develops the project, and usually the producer sells the project, unless you're dealing with a major actor, and then the actor works with the producer and helps sell the project. But I feel like you develop the project, then you go out and try to get an actor to attach themselves to the project. And then you need to get a distribution company or a studio or a streaming service to kind of like finance the project, assuming you're not doing it independently. So it's misunderstood. What is the producer? He is the ultimately, I don't want to take anything away from the director. The projects come together in a variety of ways, but the producer is the one that kind of develops it and gets it across the finish line, and then continues to work on that project to sell that project, get that project seen. I don't know if I answered the question, but I think it's a problem solver and a creative producer. It's like a marriage, man. You just like, you're into it for 30 years. I mean,
Make sure you have a good divorce lawyer if that happens.
yeah,
Because even my mother asks, "What is a producer?" I'm like, here's the video. Just watch this.
yeah. I mean, we could do a whole show on defining what are the roles of the executive producer. Executive producers normally give good lunch meetings. They have a relationship with either the buyer, the distributor, or the streaming services, or the studios. They're kind of like get the glue together to get it distributed. But then there's the creative producer who develops the project. And then there's the producer who kind of carries it through from the beginning to the end. And then you've got the line producer. Normally, if you're successful enough, you can say, I'm a producer, but then it's a line producer. He's managing the set. So there's various specific roles, and it's solving problems.
If you could attribute your success in the entertainment industry to one key habit or routine, what would it be?
You're saying I'm successful, but that's relative. So I feel, God, I just feel it's stick to itness, just never giving up, and just believing in your creativity. So whatever people say, everyone has an opinion, but you have to kind of block out those things as you move forward. And it's just moving forward because, I mean, if you're stuck, or you retreat, you keep moving forward. And I think what limited success I've had, I produced 12 movies all through studios. I've produced, and I said produced and got on the air 14 reality shows. I developed probably hundreds, and then a couple of documentaries. What's my success is just showing up and being persistent and trying, because no one wants people that give up. You just want to keep trying. And the other thing that I just want to kind of mention is I believe in synchronicity. And in the word synchronicity means, other people have the same idea. They don't either execute or they're ahead of you. I don't think there are many original ideas, and people in your audience like, oh, there's always lots of original ideas. But if you break it down and really get to the essence, there's unless you're creating some nuclear fusion or AI or something, but they're all parts. You're grabbing other things that are pre-existing and you're uniquely putting it together. I feel that's like an invention, right? How do you invent? But the invention is other parts, other stories, other things that you put together, and it's unique. I believe in synchronicity in the sense that other people will have the same idea or very similar ideas, but it's the person that gets that through to the studios. That's the person that get the attention. So I am never fearful. And I sometimes I'm so scared because my idea is so brilliant, I can't tell it to you. Mm. What? What? You're not going to tell me your idea? And it's so great. And because I think you'll steal it. Okay, you've got paperwork that says, I'm not going to steal it. And the fact is, you can't be fearful. You have to be bold and, go out there and slay those dragons. What those dragons are obstacles. So you have to not be afraid that this is your last idea. Not be afraid that someone is copying your idea. Not be afraid that you can't tell the idea because someone will steal the idea and then you'll never get credit. Just try to learn and persevere And you know what? Those ideas change, those ideas morph, but don't be afraid of yourself.
It's difficult, especially when everyone thinks everyone's going to steal everyone's ideas. And that just, you don't progress as a person. You don't progress with your projects, and it just stays up here in your head. And then it's like you moan and complain, well, why am I not a success? Well, because you're not going after what you want to go after.
Right. And I've never been fearful of that fact that I have an idea, you have the same idea. Maybe I have an ability to get that idea seen. Maybe you don't have the idea. Maybe you can't get that seen, that idea seen. And it could be the same idea.
You talked about your health challenges that you've had throughout your life currently. And I'm glad that you're talking with us here today, because when you have those types of issues and you're in a high stressful job as being a producer, when it comes to dealing with the high stress of the job and dealing with your health concerns, how did you get through that? How did you work through those issues and find your voice once more, figuratively and relatively speaking?
That's a very good question. I'm not an asshole, right? Some people like, hey, I'm proud, I'm an asshole. People hate me, people like me, but I'm not an asshole. I've always been a accommodator. So I like people. I think people like me. I use friendships, people that if they take a call from me, it's it's going to be succinct, quick, but I get to the point and a little background about what's going on. But I've never been that person that calls and like yells and screams and gets outraged. I want to work with people. So I felt that my career, from documentaries to feature films to reality, back to social media, has all been around having a core group of people that I like. They like me. Otherwise, they wouldn't work with me. And you can call in. Everyone wants to help. I believe. And you have to have a little charm, and you have to be. You just can't bore people. If you're boring, okay, but I've always got stuff going on. Usually we can talk about my health. We can talk about, I've got family issues, I've got personal issues, I've got health issues. So I always feel my story would be, it could be worse. The audience or the person that I'm talking to, it's like, geez, man, I can't believe that this guy's going through all this. But it's like you have to joke about it, because you have to have a gallows sense of humor. It's like, man, all the things that I've gone through. I was looking at some photos of myself because I'm on my website. As my website is Bogner Entertainment Inc.com. That's my business website, but my personal website is personalstories.net, and that is my passion, and that's what I'm really wanting to focus on. I was looking at some photos of myself, and it's almost like it's an out of body experience. Like certain things have happened to me, from depression to bad thoughts when you're alone in the hospital, and sometimes I couldn't get I couldn't speak. Those are really truly horrible experiences. And my mantra has always been, I will get better. I will get better, until I don't get better. But I'm just saying, you want to believe in yourself, and you want to believe that you'll get better. And the same thing with your audience. If you've got a great idea, you just need to network. And network today, you got your laptop, you can reach the world. It's not limited today. It's not limited today. So it's not your network in your local coffee shop that you're going to bump into people. It's not in your office, you've got the same people, or it's not in your house, you're going to bump into your wife. The world now, networking is never been better, never been harder, never been better.
I find a lot of the interviews I've had on the show have been through social media, have just been simply asking a person, hey, you have a really interesting concept or idea, or you're part of the entertainment industry in whatever shape and form. And I think your story would be great on my show. And that's how I went after people for the first 10 years of the show. More recently, like Rena Friedman Watts, she was a guest on the show and we did a podcast swap. And she said, I have an amazing person that you should speak to. It's Jonathan Bogner. Here's his information. Here's your connection. Let's go. And I never expected a relationship like that to form just by a simple, hey, would you like to be on a show?
Yeah, so Rena, for audience, that she's a ball of energy,
Yes.
and she's also really focused on connecting people. So that's her one of her good virtues.
Ball of energy. I've never.
Yeah.
I'm gonna send her a T-shirt like that. Ball of energy. That's perfect for her. You talk about creating projects and selecting projects that you want to work on. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't get a chance to do, especially when it comes to either personal or professional goals. I know you decided to do this because of your health scares, but what makes you select an actual project you want to work on?
I mean, that's also a great question. I today I have the advantage of being in my 60s and the advantage of being selective about things I want to do versus in my 20s, 30s, 40s, try to create and sell and listen to the buyers and what they want to do. I'm doing projects that I want to do. One project is Aquascape, which is sounds like underwater basket weaving, but it's something I discovered when I was in throughout COVID. So it's a competition developing specific spaces in a contained area, and it's a fish tank. And I mean, it's successful in Europe. Like to try to see if we can be successful in the US, but it's very niche. It's a very niche project. I don't know if we're going to sell it or not, but I hope that we can sell it. That was kind of caught my fancy. And the book that I'm presenting and trying to set up, I work with the writer, and he was so good about allowing me to help him succeed. We have not succeeded, but he's a writer that I had a relationship with. He told me about his book. I really resisted. I finally read the book. I thought it was a good story for today, about a athlete who almost makes it, but at the same time he had these personal demons, which we all have, and he got trapped and he spiraled down, and then he kind of resurrected himself. I always like those types of anti-heroes, and it's called The Walk On. And I, with the writer and his wife, who's kind of his partner, they followed my lead, and we got a deck together. We got to get a Bible together. We didn't do what's called a sizzle reel, but in order to get an agent, in order to get someone to read something today, think about everything is in a TikTok world. So I've got 30 seconds. So the last 10 years, the world of speed, and that's a whole other discussion, that multitasking, which, ultimately I don't think works for most people, but everyone multitasks. That means you've got 30 seconds to get someone's attention. And so we created a deck, we created a Bible, we have a book, but we know the last thing people want to do is read, but they just want to see something immediately. So that's how I tell stories today. Trying to work with an organization that deals with the heart, and I got UNIS is the organization that kind of deals with organ transplants. And I had a heart, so I got an organ, and I was on their site today as a success story. But you're trying to get those types of organizations to understand that, and we're pitching them, and we're pitching the American Heart Association. You have to do things, which they all do 30 seconds, but you have to have kind of like an it factor. You want to make something viral. But going back to the books, getting back to the reality shows, very selective. But if your audience has a great reality show, please reach out to me and mention Kirk's name, the reline. But I'm always looking for great stories. And I feel my personal story and personalstories.net will get other people to tell me their stories. And ultimately, I want to film it, and I want to sell that as a reality show. So there is an agenda that I have in mind.
Everyone has to start from somewhere, and everyone has to get their story out, and that's my tagline for the past 15 years. Everyone has a story to tell. It's up to me to help bring that out. And so you're doing this just on a grander scale. You're doing this to the world, especially with today's fast-paced society. Technology has advanced a whole bunch in the past 15 years, but it also, I think, has separated our connection to people. And I think with your reality shows and with the products you're bringing forth, you're kind of bringing people back to have a conversation in a face-to-face manner.
The other thing with Kirk, I'm thinking is happening is today, there's no barriers to entry. So in I would say the olden days, 10 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, if you want to make a movie, it's a big deal, right? If you want to make a feature film, that means you need money. That means you need to have a crew. There's so many elements that going into it. Today, you got your iPhone, right? Boom, film yourself, boom, put it out there. So the barriers to entry are, can you buy a phone? Okay, so assuming everyone has a phone, you can film yourself, whether it's good, whether people like it, but you have the ability to get out, find an audience, and everyone, I believe that there's an audience for everyone, whether it's small or big. And it's just all about the big personalities that kind of, or the discovery of weird stuff that you find every day. Maybe it'll get viral, or maybe, with your show, you've got your podcast, you've got your audience. It's just all about today, the barriers to entry are almost as simple as a phone. Film it, put it out there, and maybe there's a lot of competition. Maybe people will find it. And then you have to market it.
But that's the difficult part. There have been aspects today, especially, everyone looks to go viral, but if you craft your message with whatever you're trying to create or produce or sell, then someone is going to find it interesting. It just depends on how you get that approach out there. Are you going to do short reels? Are you going to get out as a traditional advertising method? Are you going to do a bunch of hot takes and get someone's reaction that triggers towards what you're trying to promote? The variety of avenues, rather amazing.
Talking to your audience about this, they film themselves. I've got my video. I'm walking around my house and observing things in my house, and I think that's interesting. Okay. Is there an audience for that? But people give up too easily. If you have something that you're passionate about, and there are other people that would be interested in it, you have to kind of reach out to those other people. So I think everyone today is almost like, there's a process, there's a procedure. So if you really want to say, like, I filmed it and I put it out there and no one came, did you do everything, that you could have done or can do? to create and reach your audience. And people just like, well, I put it out there and no one came. I mean, it's no, 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 no. There's a word called marketing. Okay. If it's not like what you do, oh, I don't market. Oh, it's like another guy I know. It's like, he's very limited. It's like, I only do one thing. Okay. Well, I don't think today you can do one thing, okay? But most people do a lot of things, but you can't say, oh, I don't raise money. Oh, okay. I don't talk about business. Oh, I just only talk about creative. It's like, well, okay, good luck, but you have to be. I mean, again, I'm going back on my own words, multitasking, but you have to have a little bit of knowledge about a lot of different aspects. And you can find your community, Reddit, all these sites, and identify that community, and then just give it to people for free. And then, develop a following, and then you can charge, get advertisers. But if your goal is to get a reality show, or if your goal is to make a movie or a documentary, I feel like, as you said in the beginning, everyone has a story. Okay, everyone has a story. Film your story, right? Film your story, and that's your story. And then buy some editing equipment or buy something, and then make it a little bit better, and then try to get it out there. I don't know, that sounds so simple, but it's very hard to do because most people are not committed. Level of commitment.
Yeah, and that's why there's 5 million podcasts out there, and they never get past episode 10 because they give up.
Yes, yeah, I mean, you told me what you've done, 1,300. Oh, that's amazing. You've never given up.
And like yourself, you keep doing reality shows and films and documentaries because I think you're passionate about these stories and these people to get it out there. And I think this is a great avenue, especially looking at your longevity of your career. You've made it work because you're just great at what you do, because you've had the trials and errors to get to where you are today. And I think that's a wonderful experience.
But also, I want to tell your audience that it's not without pain and suffering. I mean, physical pain and mental pain and emotional pain. It doesn't, you just don't wake up, one day, I've got this great idea and then I'm going to pursue it. I believe and I practice rigorous optimism, meaning you wake up, you're not always optimistic. Okay. Some days you have bad days, sometimes you have good days. It's work to be optimistic. It's work to be pessimistic. Okay. So I choose optimism, right? But you have to work at it every day. And so that's what I practice, rigorous optimism. And interestingly enough, my passions, based on my circumstances and my health, has changed me in a way, going back to what you can do within your skill set and within your orbit. And so learning technology has been hard for me, and I continue to figure out how do I watch something and rewind it, or I mean, it's challenging for me. I was not born with a computer in my brain, so it's challenging, but I slowly have adapted. But at the same time, I believe in personal stories, and I believe my story will get out. People will send me their stories, and then I'm fortunate enough in the sense that I can try to get a studio or a streaming service, and I can get those meetings because I'm in LA, and I have connections to get those meetings at a streaming service and present my idea. But you can't present ideas that are half baked. Half baked means it's not fully developed. You want to present something to people that you think, you believe that it is fully baked, and then you present it when you get that opportunity. First impressions are 99% of what people take away. You know, they they hear you. There's so many ways that people understand. They hear you, they see you, they're they see your movements, your personality comes through. So you have to be both passionate and articulate and try to get people to pay attention. The attention is so lacking. I get scripts, I get ideas, and I kind of bury myself. I don't want to get these ideas or scripts. I just want to do my own thing. But at the same time, people find me and send me, and good luck to them. Good luck to them. They got their script. They kind of know the what they need to do.
A friend of mine's creating a feature film, and I'm not going to go into details, but he's a longtime editor of the past 40 years. He's creating his first feature film. In your opinion, is it good to have a pitch deck, a Bible, everything kind of already put together before you even submit a script?
Absolutely. Okay. One, in order to submit your script, you have to identify the companies or the agencies that have a track record of making this type of movies. Okay. And if you even get to, there's barriers to entry. Not The barriers to entry are people. There's no barrier to entry of getting your cell phone, filming yourself. Okay, that's easy. Okay, the barriers are, how do you get into the inner circle? How do you get into ultimately the buyer? Okay, that's closely guarded. Okay, they've got walls and walls around Netflix, walls and walls around Paramount. How do you get into that area that you can pitch? Okay, the easier way to do it is that TikTok method, that Instagram method. That's it. Okay, so if you even get into the inner sanction of you can hear the aphasia kicking in. The inner workings of the world that you want to sell, it will get a reader. I mean, ultimately you pitch it to an executive, and then there's a reader who has to actually physically read it. Okay, they don't, truth be told, they don't really read every page. Okay, if the first 10 pages don't strike them as good, then they'll scan it, skip it, and then they'll get into the halfway point and the end, and it's like you can read a script in, give or take, half an hour to an hour, right? Okay, and that's your lifeblood that you spent 10 years, and you get an hour. And if you don't impress that person, and then it all rises up. It's like milk. It gets the cream is at the top, not where the milk is. So you have to get your friend or your editor friend to create a deck, right?
Yep.
And then if people are interested, then the Bible, which means for your audience, is all the Bible would be a big book of all the stories. Okay, so clearly the Bible. So what are the episodes? It's the breakdown of all the stories. Okay, screenplays are a little different, but you have to get a pitch deck, and possibly, because he's an editor, man, he should create a sizzle reel.
What was an early experience where you learned that language had power?
Language have power. I think it's like God, I sound so old that words hurt, you know? So you have to be more I mean, today I'm much more empathetic than I was when I was in my 20s and 30s. So you have to kind of put yourself in other people's shoes. I could always today I can blame like, oh, I've got the side effects of my drugs and makes me, bad tempered, or that makes me do certain things. But you have to empathize of what you say to people, and language has power and words hurt. So, and that's an ongoing journey that I go through every day. I don't know if that answered your question, but words hurt, and you have to just you have to put yourself in other people's positions to figure out what are the things that you should say or not say. Emotional IQ.
Yeah. The old phrase of sticks and stones may break your bones. No, break your bones.
But words,
Words.
yeah,
Yeah.
all those cliches, ultimately they're all pretty good. That's why they lasted hundreds and hundreds of years.
A grain of truth in them.
Mhm.
Everyone has one person that inspired them on their path to where they are today. Who was that for you?
Huh. Yeah. I think there was lots of people in my life that have inspired me throughout my career. But I would just say, growing up, I grew up in London, lived there for 18 years. And my uncle was a big inspiration to me because my dad left, and so my uncle was a big inspiration to me. And ultimately, he is in Canada. He moved back to his home country, Canada, and I had it was a great experience growing up. And he was a very influential person in my life. Also, my mother has been a big influence in my life. I grew up in a matriarch. My grandmother, my aunt, and my mother. Those were big influences in my life. And words count. People get very cruel, but they can also be very encouraging. So those are the big influences in my life. Work wise, I don't think I'm a good example of a person who had one or two jobs in their life and kind of clocked in and was there for 30 years. My career has been so eclectic, and I just was always trying to rise up to to ultimately be a producer. It's a God, it's a lonely but a people oriented job. When you go back in time and think about all the great things that you could have accomplished and you didn't accomplish, but the things you finally accomplished were good. I don't think I had a role model or mentor throughout my life. That's unfortunate for me.
But you've persevered, as you
Yeah,
stated earlier, and
yeah.
you're here today, and that's is all that matters.
Mhm.
From a professional standpoint, you are a successful film and reality TV producer as well as documentaries, and we only briefly touched the surface of your career, which means you have to come back on another time to talk at a better time slot to talk
Yeah.
about your career in more detail. But from a professional standpoint, you are successful. Do you consider yourself personally successful?
I consider myself personally successful, and it took a long time. I am successful in in overcoming obstacles, and most importantly, my health obstacles more than my business obstacles. And it's amazing that people look at me or their own situations in life and like, oh my God, I'm having a heart transplant. And it's like, it's amazing what people are capable of doing that they never thought they could do. So taking that one step further. So if that means that persevering and trying and trying and trying, even though you get knocked down and knocked down and knocked down, and you keep coming back, that's a metaphor for life. It's also a metaphor for success. So, you know, I was not, so that's what I would say. You don't know what you're capable of doing in a situation that all odds are against you and you keep trying.
The reverse of success is failure. How do you deal with your failures?
I would say I've dealt with failures more often than I've dealt with success. Um, Failures, they hurt. And I don't think failures makes you stronger, but they don't kill you. So, you have to deal with failure at the same time as you deal with success. It's almost like the poem, If. You have to meet success and failure as equals. And sometimes you're successful and sometimes you're a failure. And every time you succeed, what have you learned? And every time you have failed, what have you learned? So life is a constantly evolving series of events that you learn from. And if you can't learn, shame on you.
The younger generation is looking at your work and they're becoming inspired to be creative in their own way, whether it's as a producer or maybe something creative. You've inspired them on their path from your own personal journey. How can they inspire the generation that follows them?
I think that I always say, I've gotten here based on the shoulders of other people, right? Thinking about, like, as a singer, if it wasn't for someone else that suffered, I wouldn't be here today. As an actor, as a director, as a producer, I feel like every generation has new challenges, and they've got there based on learning what the other generation didn't do or did do. So what I would say to you is, throughout history, throughout time immemorial, is being a person of good character and learning from other people mistakes, and trying to persevere and never giving up. And if you have to give up, change course and pivot, which is another overused word, but you have to also be flexible in your thinking. So I think those words apply to all generations, whether it's the generation that or follows me or precedes me. You have to never give up your beliefs. It's not like never give up, but what you believe in, don't give up unless the person makes a really good argument and maybe you change your mind.
If your life was a TV show, what would its title be? And what would its soundtrack be?
Okay, my title would be Curb Your Enthusiasm. Okay, because I like personalities and I feel like closely associated with that type of observational humor. And I'm not a comedian, and I've been told that by all my family and close friends. But I see the absurdity of life, and so my my soundtrack would also be the music from that show. That's the show that I kind of mostly associate myself with. Larry David, Curb Your Enthusiasm. That would be very similar to my life.
Wonderful. Well, Jonathan, I do hate to say it, but that ends this particular episode of Two Geeks Talking. I want to thank you so much for coming on the show.
Well, Kurt, it was a pleasure. A little early for me, but hey, I hope I gave you and your audience something to think about. It was a pleasure chatting with you, and hopefully we can do it again sometime soon.
Sure. I would love to have you back on. Like I said, we just touched the iceberg, or the tip of the iceberg that was Jonathan Bogner, of course. Where can we find you and how can we support you on this wonderful wild world of the internet?
If you want to support me or give me ideas, it's BognerEntertainmentInc.com for business ideas, reality shows, film. But if it's a personal story, I'm really interested in health stories. That would be personalstories.net. You can find my story, and I'm looking for other stories, those types of inspirational stories. And it goes back to what you said in the beginning. Everyone has a story to tell, and the stories are usually about your life. And hopefully you embellish the life that makes it more exciting. Hard luck stories are inspirational stories. That's what I'm looking forward to on personalstories.net. You're watching and listening to Two Geeks Talking.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again so much. Can't wait to have you back on to talk more about yourself in the future and what you're up to next time. You can, of course, find this interview and about 1,200 plus others on our website, tgtmedia.com or twogeekstalking.com. That's TWO, not the number 2. But our website's going through a revamp. Go to our YouTube channel. That's a lot more updated. youtube.com/TGTmedia. The podcast is back after 12 or so years. You can find that at twogeekstalking.podbean.com. Or just search Two Geeks Talking wherever you get your podcasts. And as I say every week, everyone has a story to tell. It's up to me to help bring that out. Thanks for listening and watching on Two Geeks Talking.